Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the fourth Sfera Network live debate, where we are testing a bit what the European, how young Europeans are feeling, and what's happening right now within this continent. So, just to give you a bit of a reminder, Sfera Network is the first consortium of small and medium-sized, independent, and alternative media outlets with partners from France, Belgium, Spain, Italy, Poland, and Hungary. And every month we are publishing videos, social media content, and doing events offline and online, just to about like cross-border and European issues. We are right now having this live on a Thursday. Randomly, it seems like Lyra, which is just we are just basically neighbors, more or less randomly, but we just discovered that now. And we are having right now the last live of this session about what young Europeans are thinking right now of the continent, the cross-border issues, and also what they expect for the next European elections, and also maybe because we believe this is very important, that how young Europeans decided to commit themselves into like the European projects and decide, to volunteer for an organization and so on. So we are here this evening with Lyra. So Lyra is a board member of the European Youth Parliament, and you are based in Paris. You are studying economics, and you are originally from Armenia. So good evening, Lyra, and thank you again for being with us.
Good evening.
So Lyra works for the European Youth Parliament. So the European Youth Parliament was an NGO which, if I'm not mistaken, was created like 30 years ago by French volunteers. Maybe am I wrong, or are we? Super.
You are almost exactly correct. So it was created in 1987, and last year we celebrated the 35th anniversary.
Ah, 35th. Okay.
Yes, it was established in Fontainebleau, so indeed in France, which makes it very, very exciting as well, given that right now I'm in Paris.
Super, excellent. Okay, and since then, the European Youth Parliament has been like really like a springboard for young Europeans from wherever they are and whatever their background, origins, nationality, citizenship, really for them to explore a bit Europe and to explore your European projects, European collaboration, and really like European adventures in a lot of ways. So I'm very pleased that Lyra acceded to be with us and just to explain what the EIP stands for, the values, and so on, and how what is this project. And I'm pretty sure if we have viewers which are interested, like feel free to join. So thank you very much. Lyra, if you had to define or maybe to sum up what is European Youth Parliament in 3 sentences, what would it be?
I would say that it is, as you said, non-governmental organization present in 40 countries. So a lot of diversity, a lot of inclusion, bringing together young people who are very willing to understand this intercultural connection, find out more about each other, about themselves, and contribute to the growth of the network, and of course, gain a lot of personal growth.
Ah, cool. Excellent. That sounds a fantastic plan. And how long yourself have you been involved into the European Youth Parliament?
So this will be my 7th year. So I started in 2017, and I joined the governing body this year in January. So it's been a journey, and then taking a bit even more commitment than I had before.
Okay, cool. And what do you do? What is, the point of the European Youth Parliament? Like, what do you do for your activities?
So we organize mainly conferences. So if someone had to start EYP and ask me, okay, Lyra, how am I joining EYP? I would say that they will certainly start with a conference. They see if EYP is present in their country or if it is present in one of the neighboring countries, because logistically it sometimes can be easier to start with the national committee that is close to you, so that you can travel to the event. And then you would arrive to the session, you would have a day of team building, and then you would have committee work, which is discussing European issues inside of your committee. So a group of people around your age, maybe a little bit younger or older, writing resolution for these issues, and then the last day just coming together and debating on these issues and understanding how we can improve the outcomes. So a lot about learning how we can solve these issues and trying to find innovative solutions.
Okay, great. So if I understand right, so basically you are replicating what the European Parliament does, whatever in Brussels, in Strasbourg, but for young Europeans, and how you know through like the processes of having a parliamentary session, you are able actually to for young Europeans to make their mind about European Union policy, about like what the EU should do, and just for them basically to pretend like for 3 days or 4 days that they are MEPs. Is it correct?
Definitely. Yes, it's very correct. And I think in part that is why then young people start becoming more and more engaged in civic activism and understanding how their voices can be making change and how they can be useful and how they can shape the future. So bringing together and through fun activities, very friendly atmosphere, educating and shaping common understanding.
Great, that's fantastic. What was like the thing with volunteers is just like often like they get hooked on a dedicated project and they have some kind of a EYP moment. What
Definitely. I think it is one
yeah.
concept that is still not very clear how we do that, but it really happens when young people come. At the beginning, I think it starts with a little bit of a shock because taking my own personal example, when I arrived, I didn't expect that we will start with some team building activities. I thought it will be very serious. It is like conference. What would you expect from a conference? That we are coming and we are very serious. No, we started with a full day of team building. It was a lot of interactive activities, understanding each other, meeting people from 40, if not more countries and nationalities. So a lot of connections, networking. So from that moment, people start working in the environment. And by the end of the session, we reach this stage when people do not really want to leave because they came into this, they really shaped and understood this EYP spirit. And then it really becomes, okay, how can I get more involved? And then you go to another session and then you start shaping already your objectives in EYP and you try to understand how EYP can help you. And then at some point, how you can help with your experience EYP. Yes.
And and what kind of issues do you debate upon? Like for you, your first session, do you remember what was the topic?
Yes, I remember that the first conference that I joined personally, it was sponsored by the Central Bank of Armenia. So, and as I was doing my bachelor's degree in business administration and economics, I was very interested, and that's why I later had a little bit of shock from the team building part. But nice shock, very nice shock. So it was a lot about financial literacy, integrating technology into finance and understanding how we can solve a lot of monetary issues. So that was the theme of that session. Yeah, and I specifically remember that mine was financial literacy for young people. And then for the rest of the sessions, the topics are usually very diverse. So as it would be in the European Parliament, the committees can be ENVI on environment, CULT on cultural affairs, ECON on economic and monetary affairs. So the topics are very different. Sometimes we have a theme, but we do not really have the constraints. So we try to keep the discussions as diverse and interesting as possible.
The issue is super interesting, but also it's very specific, like financial literacy.
True.
So it makes sense. It makes sense for you as an economic student to be very involved into the project. But how you do convince, like maybe like people who have not studied economics, or maybe who have not studied at all, how like has MEPs for the day or MEPs for several days, like the elected officials, how that you can manage for them just to talk about those issues, which can be a bit complex and maybe a bit scary for some.
I think in EYP it comes from the very beginning of the preparation. So we go through all the stages. We start from zero, and then at the end we bring people and policy makers or decision makers together, and then they start discussing everything. Before that, when we start from zero, we start with, for instance, the academic board of the certain conference, which are usually 4 people or 3 people shaping the topics. So it is very much young people around maybe 18, 22 years old. They draft the topics. And then several people who are called chairpersons of the committees, they join the session and they start the academic preparation. So they write the document, which is around 6 pages long, about the topic, of very objective document describing the issue, who are involved, what is the background of the issue, what are some key conflicts of this issue, and what are some measures in place. So I would say it is a very good summary of the issue. All the research is there. And then before the conference, we are sending it to the delegates who are coming and participating in the conferences. They read, they ask a lot of questions to the academic board and the chairperson, and then they spend around 3 days working on the issues connected to the topic and the solutions. Through that research process, they already developed at least the basic understanding. And then when we bring them with the decision makers together in one room, it is a lot about our focus on creating the area for the dialogue. So we do not try to show that young people are experts in this field, so we want very, very professional connection here. No, we want to open the area and for young people be able to ask any questions that they have, because sometimes the questions can be incredible, sound very basic, but extremely difficult to tackle. And this connection, seeing it, is very interesting.
What kind of questions like were you the most surprised of? Was the most incredible questions like you have heard into an EYP session?
Well, it can be a very basic question, which really tackles the core of why we even do this. So what it would be, why is for instance, if we talk about the elections, why is the turnout of the elections for young people maybe low? And then the policymakers need to start thinking about it and trying to answer to the question of a teenager, for instance. Why would it really be low, and what can we do to improve this? And then they start describing their efforts. And then through this exchange, I think both parties leave conferences or the discussions with some insights of how we can continue working.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. Like, I've taken a look at several of the sessions in the past, and it seems like the topics can be super broad. But it seems I may have noticed maybe like 2 trends. Like the first one is a lot of things about climate and environment, and another thing about more about social issues. So I was wondering, from your perspective, why you think those topics are the more interesting to do for when people want to discuss about youth engagement and what's happening at the European level.
Very nice question. I'm very involved in the academic side of EYP. That's why the question is really asking me my perspective as well, because as I'm coming from the more technical background, from the professional point of view, sometimes I'm very willing to integrate more topics on economics, finance, technology, because it is also growing. But those topics are sometimes considered very technical. And if during one session where we have 9 committees, more than 2 or 3 committees have this type of question, something technical for understanding, then young people might not feel extremely inspired to tackle these issues. So that's why we have the mix. But when it comes to climate and youth participation, indeed, we have more and more topics on that and different aspects, and we try to make sure that each session is contributing with something new, looking into deeper or different aspects of the same topic. I think sometimes it comes with chairpersons having the autonomy to draft their own topics. And
okay, it's just just for people who don't know, what is a chairperson here? Is it like the ultimate boss who is going to decide what is going to be drafted?
The chairperson is the facilitator of one of the committees. Okay. So when participants come to the conference, they have one chairperson who is responsible for leading the discussions, for instance, in their own group. So this person who will be drafting the document that we discussed to provide the participants with some basic research and kind of help to build the tools to continue the research, they can draft their own topic. And if they are personally interested in climate change, then maybe the topic will be about climate change.
Okay. It is very interesting because, like, of course, like every time you're a bit experimenting, and it really depends on what the participant will do. But like, as you have been involved into the EYP for a long time, like, do you have in mind maybe like some discussions that you had in committees or had, for during those sessions that like, afterwards were adopted by the real world or by the real European Parliament or by a national parliament or whatever? Like, do you have an example of those kind of issues, or maybe like a proposal from your committee that actually was taken up and was actually implemented?
Well, I will probably not come up with example right away, but every year from our flagship events, so the international sessions, which gather the biggest number of participants, we're sending the resolutions to the European Commission for the policymakers to have a look on what young people suggest implementing, and I believe that it can be a very good starting point. If we go into the briefings of the European Commission meetings, probably there will be some ideas that it was maybe common with all the general assemblies that ever happened in EYP. So I believe it should be the case.
Okay, great. Fantastic. And just like you said, okay, there was an internal session. So just like, is it people like coming from all across Europe who are meeting in one country, or like how does it work? Like, because like, for example, for here, like you need to have a good level of English because you need to negotiate and just to be understood and to understand each other. Like, how does it work? Maybe for people who are maybe not familiar with English, like, is it a problem for participation?
Not really. We quite usually have participants who are not very fluent in English, and it is not an obstacle because, firstly, it is one of the purposes why we do this, for people to be able to learn more, firstly, from each other, but it is also a great way to overcome the fear of using the language. And then you have enough time before you arrive to the session to do some research. So I think language learning wise, it is an incredible chance to use the language. For instance, I participated in the session of EYP France last year, and EYP France uses two working languages during the conference. So it is mainly in English, but we also use French. And let's say I'm not very fluent in French, and I was the president of the conference. So I delivered my speech, summation speech. The first several minutes were in French. And I was standing in front of almost 200 people and shaking because I didn't feel confident at all, even though I feel quite fine delivering a speech in English for sure. And I think it really helps some of the participants of the session to be able to participate more in English if they didn't feel confident. And to answer to the part of if people are coming to one country, so the network is active in 40 countries. And in each of these 40 countries, there are several conferences, sessions, or maybe training events, different types of events throughout the year. And if you are close to that country, if you're from that country, or if it is convenient for you to travel there, then you apply for the session and then you join that particular one. And then you can go maybe to another one if you are continuously becoming interested.
Okay, great. And do you know, like, for a normal volunteer, like how many sessions would they do? Like, just if they decide just to stay like 3 or 4 years?
I checked my members platform today. I saw that throughout 7 years, I have 43 events.
So over
Which
7
is
years,
a lot.
like, which is a lot, yeah.
That's a lot. So I would say for 3 years, 4 years, 20 is already quite a lot. So when I started, I was doing maybe 3 events throughout the year. But then when COVID happened, we also started integrating. Can you hear me?
I can. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, now perfect.
Okay, super. Okay, cool.
So yes, because of COVID, we integrated also the digital format, so which allowed us to become much more inclusive, and we do not need people to travel from one place to another to join EYP sessions. So we also have throughout the year a lot of digital events and training events, so that helps. a
Cool,
lot.
fantastic. Okay. It seems like you are very keen to be involved into like youth participation and youth involvement. Like being, I think, a board member, like for such a big organization means like you really believe into this.
I do. I do.
Uh, so I was wondering from your side, like, uh, what are like the lessons learned for like what kind of lessons should we draw from the AYP on how to include more young people to the EU decision making? Do you have maybe for you some nice example? Do you have maybe some tips for people who would like to, for policymakers who would like to do that? Because there is another thing about the participation and participating, but after being involved on time, well, sometimes is also to be heard. It's not only to speak out. So I was
Mhm.
wondering from your side, like how like decision makers or influencers or like decision makers or can actually are they able actually to for the youth to be heard and not only just to use that kind of as a trait. Just okay, we some people just talked, and some young
Yes,
we just
exactly.
invited some young people. That's great, but right now like we are not going really to hear them a lot.
Indeed. I think during the years of being active in EYP, I saw really how our collaboration changes and how our interaction trajectory changes. So it all started, I think, with more town halls. So we were inviting policymakers to come. So 4 or 5 of them were maybe sitting, and there were 200 people listening to them. And then I think we started realizing that this is not really an exchange. It is more listening, but maybe the other side, where young people also have something to offer. And then we started including that concept into the sessions. So inviting them, but turning it more into a conversation and space where young people can ask questions. I think for the future, it is very much necessary that young people really have more active stance and participate more in these type of events. And whenever they see that there is an opportunity for discussion with um, decision makers, they really take this opportunity. I think the constraint that we have sometimes is that people don't think they are qualified enough because they are young, and sometimes this is very much an obstacle. Like, okay, I may be just starting university, or maybe I'm graduating from university, but I don't have job and stable position in life. So what would I say, and how would it be um, looked visible from the other side? I think this is obstacle that is more in our head, because we are definitely not the only ones who are in that position. There are millions of young people who also have something to say, but we do not always say that. So I think that's firstly for us to just overcome this, and then it should become easier at some point.
And do you have any tricks for people to overcome this? Like, because like as you said, it's a mindset. So it's
Definitely.
really something that can be very rooted into someone's brains and mind.
Mhm.
So what can you know of traits, of tips or whatever you can give to the audiences on, okay, like you can be heard, it makes sense
Mhm.
for you to participate?
Well, for me, it started with really starting my EYP journey, because I started as a very shy person who would not be able to sit here right now and speak
I
up.
really.
Yeah, I remember the first day when I was standing there during the General Assembly. So when we're really discussing all the resolutions with everyone, I was standing, I was holding the microphone, and it was shaking. So I couldn't really speak with a confident voice. But then throughout the participation, when you see that people support me, there are people who think in the same way, there are people who think in a different way, and it is not scary. It is completely fine. People have opinion, people voice it, and when people voice it, you at some point see a lot of appreciation for your courage to do that. And then you start participating in bigger scale events, and with bigger scale events, you have opportunities for networking. For instance, last year it was my first time entering actually the European Parliament, because one of the conferences I was part of won the Charlemagne Prize for
And
young
just what
people.
what what is the Charlemagne Prize, if I may ask?
It is the prize for organizing some kind of impactful youth event.
Okay.
And the event that won it was one of the flagship events of EYP in Slovenia, so Ljubljana
Okay.
International Session.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I was the core organizer. And when head organizers were unable to travel to the event, and I lived in Paris, it was very convenient for me to join. And I saw that for me as Armenian, so non-EU citizen, it was very interesting experience. And I think it was also pretty diverse, because there were not a lot of non-EU citizens. So I think this was an opportunity to talk to some of the MEPs and ask questions about, for instance, Eastern Partnership countries and cooperation with the EU. So it was great experience, but it comes with time. It was my 6th year in EYP, and not the only opportunity, but because there are a lot, they're not always available for traveling around, but it was great thing to achieve throughout these years.
This is super interesting because it's something I haven't we haven't discussed that before when we discuss about the meeting. But let me just allow you to have a question which was not part of the when we discussed, just like the differences between Europeans, like EU citizens from the EU27 and non-Europeans. Maybe can you explore a bit about it, because right now this is really an issue which is at the heart of right now of what is being European. Like we have, of course, the war against Ukraine. Of course, even very recently, like we are taping this live in March, but like weeks ago in Georgia, there were massive protests, and we could see that we saw the EU flag. So this is really something which can be a surprise for like French persons or for people from within the European Union who basically they don't really see flags at protest when activists are here. So how do you explain just to for people within the European Union like these differences of what is like being European and like your differences of recently?
Great question, very nice one. I think it very much is connected to EYP as a whole, because it is a network present in not 27 countries, EU member states, but in 40 countries. So it is everything about European values and not the passport of the European Union. Not at all. I think that the protests in Georgia, from my personal point of view, were an excellent example of people really fighting for their everything they believe in. If they want to believe in more European values, they will do that, and they will be very active in that. And just living in one country and not being able to express yourself, I don't think that it is something we want to see in the future. So having the conferences and the sessions in non-EU countries is very impactful, because firstly, EYP is educational network. So it is everything about learning different issues. And if the issue is discussed in the European Parliament, it doesn't mean that it is the issue of the European Union only. The issues are very global. They are discussed across the world. So I think it is still very relevant, and it is very interesting. It's just about different legislations and being able to understand why, for instance, one union would do something in one way, and for instance, maybe the US would do in a completely different way, or Australia. Yeah, okay, that's my point of view.
No, this is very interesting. Like it's always interesting to see especially with 40 countries, like how you manage to build compromises and agreements. So this is in a way it's being European, just really being able to do negotiation. But besides those sessions and so on, and the fact you are bringing young Europeans together just to discuss and draft legislation, what kind of other flagship initiative or flagship project that you would like to highlight from the EYP?
For instance, if it is not on national committee level, and national committees are the organizations in the countries, for instance, EYP France or EYP Armenia. If we're talking about the EYP in general, and for instance, the international office that we have, it is the office which, for instance, organizes some kind of events. We have different ones, for instance, Summer Academy, and it is more for active members of the network who are running the organizations in these 40 countries to come together and exchange best practices. It works very well. Those are very interesting, because when you have 40 organizations, yes, they believe in the same strategy and have some similar vision, but still they are in different countries. So people cannot really communicate every day, and they need the platform for exchange. So they come during this event, they exchange best practices and understand how they can function better. Or last year, we had the Active Citizenship Lab, which was helping to build the skills of project management, building partnerships with other organizations, organizing outreach events to become even more inclusive than we are right now, and how we can improve all of that. So throughout the year, we have very different training events. and we try to include as many young people as possible.
Okay, great. Okay. Just yeah, because you are a foundation, so you are non for profit. You are not here to make money. So, for example,
Mhm.
do you need to pay to attend like EYP sessions?
No,
No.
there is in national committees for some of the conferences there is a certain type of participation fee.
Okay.
It is pretty low to make sure that it is as inclusive as possible, because for the organizations in the countries, it is sometimes very difficult to do the fundraising. And during
Of course.
COVID, it was an additional obstacle, and those are young people. And of course, when you are bringing so many young people together, you're paying for a lot of different things, including hostels or hotels, spaces that you're renting, materials, and everything. So for that, there is some kind of participation fee.
Okay, but it's not like 500 euros for 4 days.
No, it
No.
is around 20 euros, something like
Ah,
that.
okay.
So,
Okay. Okay, cool. And maybe this is going to be our last questions because we need to go to a close. But I think, or at least the last theme of questions, a lot of things that happened since the last European elections. COVID happened, the war against Ukraine happened, the return of the war more broadly, also with Armenia. Climate change right now is becoming more and more a complex issue, more and more present into our lives. Like both of us, we are in France, and France right now has been living right now in some kind of a continuous drought for the next year. So, which is completely crazy. So it means that Europe has changed a lot over the last 5 years from the sessions and you are doing and so on. Like, what are your feelings that the European youth wants from those European Parliament or the EU more broadly? Like, what do they want to do and how they want to do it?
I think they want more concrete actions. Um, Shaping vision is great and it is very nice. But I think when we continue shaping the vision for many years and the progress that we're making is slow, then at some point, young people become very active in their willingness to see more tangible results at that moment. Because, yes, we continue talking, but while we talk, the issues become more and more difficult to tackle. And I think from that perspective, during the discussions and debates as well, I see that more young people just want to see some results. So more active actions. And once the elections happen, I believe young people will start maybe putting more pressure than before on the discussion that, okay, elections are done, people are start taking their positions. But how does this go? And progress tracking will be better than before.
But what kind of concrete decisions are we talking about?
Um, I think moving more from discussions, for instance, with the same climate change issue is becoming more and more important, and now EU is facing the issue that energy sector needs to be more diverse, and we should move maybe a little bit faster than we anticipated before to the renewable energy transition. So
Okay.
I think the speed of making the decisions and looking for more diverse scenarios.
Okay. Okay. So this is interesting because like this is like it echoes what like sociologists and others are saying, okay, right now I'm including also millennials, even if like right now people under
Mhm.
25 are Gen Z, so more like people born around the 2000s, like they are as aware of the issues as their predecessors can be. So people may be at 40 or 50, but the main difference is just like the patience is running thin. It's just like right now, like the differences is just like the tolerance for inaction has actually decreased a lot and shrank a lot over the years. Uh, do you have maybe other example about like just like having those kind of concrete actions, like maybe like young Europeans would do, but besides climate change?
Um, well, let me think. I think exploring maybe more ways between the member states to collaborate on a lot of different issues. Maybe trade. I do believe that there are a lot of pressing issues, of course, except climate change. But maybe right now we are at the point when there are certain issues that those are very pressing and people tend to concentrate on them. I also felt that throughout the sessions that when we draft, for instance, the topics, it was very much youth oriented. People are interested in concrete things because they are the most pressuring ones for them in short-term perspective.
Okay. Okay, so we are just maybe we are just like about to wrap this up, but I have still two questions. The first one is like, did we miss anything from today from our chat, or do you think maybe like you would like to make another point about the YP or other topics that we have discussed, or maybe like other topics that you would like to mention, other topics that should be interested for young Europeans who are watching this?
Well, maybe I can re-emphasize the benefits of joining EYP from personal point of view. I think it is very much leaving the comfort zone, and for young people at this age, I think it is very important. There is a lot of demand for us, maybe even from ourselves, to start becoming more active and really leaving comfort zone and developing certain skills that we, for instance, might need in our professional lives. I think for that reason, engaging in this type of educational networks is very important because of the networking as well. I think as a young person, it at some point becomes very difficult when you do not communicate a lot with your peers and do not exchange your opinion and are not very much feeling comfortable doing that. At some point, when you start maybe entering your professional career, it becomes very difficult and you really feel the lack of it. That part really helped me a lot because I will be graduating from master's degree now, and I feel very confident doing a lot of things that maybe a few years ago I wouldn't.
Okay, nice. It's a nice personal testimony. And last question, just where are you going next? Like for your next EYP session, like where is it? Do you know the topic, and do you know what you will do?
I do. Next session will be the National Selection Conference of EYP UK. It will be a national session happening in Liverpool in September. And the topics are being drafted right now by the chairpersons who joined the team several days ago. So we already delivered a few modules on how you would even shape the topic, where you will find ideas. And one of the points that I was making is that besides the news, that you can go and scroll through the news and find the most demanded topics, you can also just go and talk to your friends. And at some point, there can be this spark that great topic. This could be really discussed in EYP because it is very open and you can actually discuss everything that you want. So yes, I will be the president of the session, so leading the academic team. And right now we're in the process of research.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and for spending your early evening with us. This was actually the last debate, or the last FERA debate, before we are taking a break for a few months because we are working on new projects. Like we are soon, like this spring, we are going to republish some monthly videos from from everywhere across Europe. Thank you again for your time this evening, and see you soon.
Thank you very much.